Oh my god! 253 games!
Welcome back, Cave Dweller. Today is Game Dev Friday. On Saturday. Again. I promise, one of these days I'm gonna put a video out on time. I also skipped posting last week, but I have a totally reasonable excuse for that. I was plastered at the casino. And as you saw in the opening clip, I won $1 million bajillion, so I don't need to do this channel anymore. I'm just kidding. Thinking I'm gonna make money on a game dev channel is even more ridiculous than thinking I'm gonna beat the house at the casino. Speaking of beating the house, I didn't. Well, actually, I kind of did, but I could have done so much better. So me and my college roommate went up to Binghamton last weekend to clean up my apartment, and while we were there, we decided to go to the casino because we've never been there before. I was responsible. I brought in $75, and I split that money between roulette and slots. As you saw from the opening clip, I did pretty well in the slot machine. That game was 30 cents per spin, and with all the free games, I ended up making about 78 bucks. And then I also made 80 bucks on roulette, so I almost left the casino with $150. But then I thought it'd be a really good idea to put $25 on black. It wasn't black. And I lost that bet, so I decided to chase it. And I lost the next one. And then pretty quickly, that $80 in roulette was zero. But with the money I made on slots, I left with $1 extra than I came in with. So in a way, I did beat the house. Anyway, the casino was a ton of fun, and since me and my roommate have been making jokes about going back all week long, I thought it'd be perfect to make a slot machine for this week's Game Dev Friday. So I'm going to stop talking and get to the game development. Other than the fact that it's an excuse to make stupid gambling jokes for the entire video, the other reason I decided to make a slot machine for this week's Game Dev Friday is I want to get more comfortable with Unity's UI system. I've been noticing in previous weeks that I get pretty anxious whenever I have to add any sort of scoring feature or if I have to add any sort of text that pops up. And not to spoil anything, but as of now, I feel a lot more comfortable with a lot of these features. So after some brainstorming and tweaking, I came up with this initial design. It did feel cool to get something to sort of work, but this was not what I was looking for. If anything, this was a random number generator, not a slot machine. Woohoo, I'm rich! Ding, 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 ding! Sorry about that. So the next day, after making this random number generator, I decided to come back and make it into a true slot machine. And when I came back, I realized I hadn't saved the scene at all. Again. I can't even begin to tell you how frustrated I'm getting with myself over this forgetting to save the scene over and over and over again. I've made 3 game dev videos now, and I think in all 3 of them, forgetting to save the scene has been a huge problem for me. At this point, it's not even about losing my work, since this week I didn't even lose that much work since I kind of had to rework the whole game anyway, but it's just more the fact that I keep on making the same mistake and not learning from it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I'm not trying to make excuses here, but I will say part of the problem is my computer here is pretty beat up, and as a result, when it stays open for too long, it just shuts down and you have to restart the thing from scratch, and as a result, that kind of deletes the scenes. But you know what? It's not an excuse because I know my laptop is like this. I have to be on top of saving. Eventually, I would love to have a better setup, but for now, it is what it is. For now, though, to make these videos, I use Unity on my HP laptop, and I record the videos on my iPhone. And then holding my iPhone, I have a little $15 ring light. And you know what? I'm not complaining. They get the job done. Eventually, I want to get a nice PC and a nicer camera, but until I know exactly what I want, I'm in no rush. By the way, if you have any advice on building or purchasing a PC that's ideal for game development, playing video games, and also video editing, please let me know. I appreciate the help. Anyway, so on the original version of the slots, I kind of had a random number generator script for each of the 3 text boxes with the zeros. I realized, though, to make an actual slot machine and compare the numbers to each other, you kind of had to have them in the same script. So instead, I made a game manager and included the script in there. And after ironing out a couple kinks here and there, I had a functional slot machine. And this worked. If this was a lab project in class, this would get the job done. The only issue is it's kind of boring. And I understand as a beginner game developer, some of my projects are going to seem a little simple, especially at first. But still, I felt like I had a lot more to add to the slot machine, so I got back to work. Well, I didn't get back to work right away. Even though the game was pretty simple, I did want to see if I could win anything. Jackpot! Even though it means literally nothing, I get a little excited when the 3 numbers go in a row. I can see how those old people who scratch the slot machines get so addicted.
Scrape it, scrape it, scrape that motherfucker! Scrape that shit, Johnny!
Outstanding.
So the first major change I made to my slot machine was adding 2 extra slots. This was honestly pretty simple. The only part that caused any difficulty was changing the win conditions. Using nested if statements, I programmed it so getting the first 3 numbers in a row was a minor win, getting the first 4 numbers in a row was a major win, and then getting all 5 numbers in a row was a jackpot. In this version, getting 3 in a row got you $50, getting 4 in a row got you $500, and getting 5 in a row got you $5,000. Ah, just missed the jackpot. You know what they say, most bettors quit just before they hit the big win. And that's why I'll never quit. At this point, this was working pretty well, but I still felt like there was some stuff I could add. Not to sound like a complete degenerate gambler here, but one thing I noticed was after you won a big bet, it kind of took away from the stakes because you had so much money that you really couldn't lose that much from your budget. So I thought it'd be cool to add a way to raise your bet. That way, if the player raises their bets, they can once again feel the pain of the losses. So I made two blank functions to increase and decrease the bet, and I realized I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. I was tempted to go on the internet and search up some help, but I challenged myself to try to figure it out on my own. And after thoroughly overthinking the problem, I figured it out. And while it did take an embarrassing amount of time, it does feel great to write the code on your own. So I made some pretty buttons and hooked everything up, and everything on my slot machine was starting to come together. Now you could bet as much or as little as you wanted to, so long as it was within the range of the minimum of 10 and the maximum of your budget. And then I also had to make the payouts so they were no longer a set amount, so instead I multiplied them by the amount you were betting by. So if you got the first 3 in a row, it's times 5. If you got the first 4 in a row, it's times 25. And if you got all 5 in a row for the jackpot, it's times 100. And even though this is still pretty basic and ugly, I was pretty satisfied with how this came out. There was just one thing missing. The sound effects, of course. Thinking about my trip to the casino, the most memorable part was definitely all the sounds. The slot machines in particular use pretty music and imagery to really draw you in with your emotions. To prey on your emotions, honestly. And while I decided not to bother any further making this thing look nice, I decided I really wanted to go all in with the sound effects. So that took me to Pixabay to look for some free sound effects. This is obviously not a sponsor. Of course, I'm not sponsored. I have 30 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you, but I don't think any company cares. I do enjoy using Pixabay, though, if I need background music for a video or if I need sound effects. Anyway, here's the final product. For the test, I changed the code so that the only numbers you can get were either 3 or 1 to ensure there'd be more wins. I didn't want to spend 1,000 times to get a jackpot. If this was an actual game I was putting out, the last thing I'd do is do some calculations to try to find a good balance of winning to losing so that the game doesn't feel too easy. Calculate the ideal amount of numbers for the slot machine to land on during the game. Balance the prize multipliers out a little more. But for today, this is perfect. Compared to some of the other games I've made so far, I was pretty proud of this one. For next Friday, I'm thinking of going all out and making a top-down adventure game. But that's just my thought for now. Let me know what you think I should do. Thank you so much for watching. See you next Game Dev Friday. Hopefully actually on Friday next week. Adios.